you a home grower looking for a little bit of help? Are you ready to learn as much as you can about your favorite hobby? The Homegrown Helpers brings you informative interviews from experienced growers that have taken the next steps in their journey and decided to help you grow top quality cannabis all in your home. Now welcome in our host, Rob Smith, along with this week's Homegrown Helper.
And welcome to another week of the Homegrown Helpers. I have another South African grower here for you. And in listening to this interview, I realized that I apparently have such a fascination with what they experience down there with the power outages. And I've learned lately that there are no power cycling issues down there. The government, I guess, paid their bills and somehow money appeared. And during this pandemic, they have 24-hour power down there right now, which I think is awesome. But, this is the third interview, and I think we get more into the effect on the plants and how is a grower to overcome a power outage. And personally, I've been through 5 days without power, running generators, waking up at really odd hours to make sure they didn't run out of fuel, switching extension cords from room to room, popping breakers, so on and so forth. So we really dig into this a little bit more and what you as a grower need to do to overcome that. And I think this will wrap up my fascination with the power cycling issues that they have down there. I do get into, and I want to get your opinion, so hit me up on Instagram DMs or email me, thehomegrownhelpers@gmail.com, about power or light cycling experiments. And I talked to a guy that at some trade show somewhere that swore by a process of 5.5 hours of light on, an hour off, 5.5 hours of light on, and then 12 hours off. And that gives your plants 2 days in its biology, 2 days of light, because it rests for that hour and then rebounds and gets more light. And I want to hear from you guys what you do for any light cycling experiments that you're currently under or have seen. As things get closer, I need more interviews. So if you're out there, I want you to apply. It's thehomegrownhelpers.com/apply. If you're across the world, in the US, Canada, anywhere, I want to hear your stories about growing in your places. Share your experiments, your journey. Share with us what it's like to grow cannabis or be a cannabis advocate in your area. That's what we're here for. Education, spread it. thehomegrownhelpers.com/apply. And then, we wrap up the interview with Kyle on talking about lights and how home growers, should be selecting the lights for their grow rooms. So, we have lots of things going on at My Grow Pass, and I'm running a little long here, but these are really awesome things. First, you heard me announce it last week. We're doing a contest with Diamond Cut Co. Head on over to growcastpodcast.com/giveaway. It ends, when does it end? Beginning of June 2nd, June 3rd. So you have another week or so, but you can win one of 10 pairs of Diamond Cut Co. scissors. We also have another giveaway, and this is a very special giveaway. This is just for our listeners. So we're going to give away, I think, 2 or 3 packs, depending on our response here, of People Under the Stairs genetics. And we thank these Puts Beans, as they call them, People Under the Stairs genetics, get it? And what we're going to do is anybody that gives a rating and review and sends the screenshot to either the email address, thehomegrownhelpers@gmail.com, or just send it to us on DM on Instagram. You're going to be entered into a contest for one of either 2 or 3 packs of these genetics. And we can't thank, People Under the Stairs Genetics for their donation and helping us get more ratings and reviews. So this is a big push. It's going to run for 2 weeks. Whenever this goes live, we need your support. Help us grow. Going to be doing the same thing over at Growcast. So give us some ratings and reviews and enter into this contest. And real quick, I'm going to wrap this up with a message from our partner, Buxton Hollow Farm. You can use the code GCL10 Growcast listener. That's for Growcast listener, GCL10 to save 10% off your entire order at buxtonhollowfarm.com. Now, they have all of your organic gardening needs: Biocharged Biochar, Supercharged Biochar, Nourished Coir, worm castings, compost tea brewers of all sizes, compost tea bag refills, an entire kit. Everything you need to keep things fresh and healthy in your garden if you're on that organic gardening kick. Buxton Hollow Farm, GCL10 to save 10% off your entire order. Now let's get into this episode with Kyle, and let's learn about what they're doing in South Africa with the power. And welcome to the show, boys and girls, ladies and gents. Very happy to be here with you for another episode of The Homegrown Helpers. Today, I have another South African grower on the line. I think this is the third one I've spoken to so far. And I, really just enjoy hearing the stories. It reminds me of hearing stories of, what kind of some of the trailblazers in our current cannabis industry have had to go through. And, in the last 30, 40 years, and, the guerrilla style grows and things that most new growers nowadays don't have to even think about. And, welcome to the show, Kyle.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Rob. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. So why don't you just start us off, Kyle, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with cannabis and, what brought you here today?
Cool. Well, so I've been growing for about 6 years. Only really got serious in the last 2 years after being in California for a year. And then, came back home and decided that, this is what I want to pursue. And I've taken on the challenge of indoor growing now. And got indoor, outdoor, and
So you have an indoor and an outdoor garden. By the time listeners have heard this, we'll have aired at least one, if not both, of the other South African interviews. So we know that it's decriminalized, I believe, or deemed to be a constitutional right, but it hasn't been legalized there. So.
Yeah, so from my understanding of it, it's such a gray area. Like the movement that really got pushed was more for the right to privacy in your own home. So it wasn't necessarily pushed like for cannabis, but more for the privacy. But now, after our State of the Nation address, our president did say that he plans on getting in touch with international trends and, plans on making moves and actually setting laws, which, will be nice for us because it's very gray. How much are you allowed to grow? How much are you allowed to possess? How much are you allowed to drive with? It's all up to the discretion of the cop at the end of the day.
Okay. While we're on that topic, why don't we talk about, the overall climate in Africa? We've gotten a little bit about South Africa. But you said you had some interesting things that were going on in the whole of Africa. And I had just seen a report this morning, and maybe it's old, but you can find it on maryjane.com, that Nigerians spend the most amount of money on cannabis than any other nation in the world. And it actually makes me want to bring up the article here, and let's see if I can quickly get to an amount. According to a new report, there are over 20 million cannabis consumers in Nigeria alone.
Wow.
And spent over 15 billion on pot annually. And this came out under a year ago, so it's not that old. 15 billion on pot annually. What do you think about that?
That actually really interests me because if I'm not mistaken, I think the population in Nigeria is about 55 million. So, like to think that nearly a third of their population is consuming pot at the amount that is, $15 billion. That's huge. It makes me happy though. I mean, I'm really not upset about that. But with regards to to the rest of Africa, I know that Malawi is also now legalized cannabis, and they've going to be exporting most of their stuff. Our inland country, Lesotho, they've also legalized it, and yeah, there's quite a lot of things happening there. It's actually quite a hot topic. We had our cannabis expo in my hometown, Johannesburg, last year in October, and I worked and I spoke to a lot of people who approached me and were from Lesotho and wanting to speak to people about setting up facilities and lighting. So I know Lesotho is definitely a new one happening. Zambia as well, just north of South Africa, they've legalized it. Zimbabwe have legalized it. So I think it's really nice to see that Africa is starting to like our president says, follow global trends. Yeah, I really think that we have a really incredible climate here. Unfortunately, I'll be honest, where I'm from, growing outdoors, especially now, it's coming to our harvest time, and we get late afternoon thunder showers. So then our humidity outside just goes through the roof. A lot of people are having problems with powder mildew, but the sunlight, like our hours are really long. Our soil here is really rich. There hasn't been a lot of pesticides and whatnot used in the soil. So yeah, a lot of really fertile, untouched land that now people are starting to see the potential for.
Yeah. Really fascinated by the cannabis culture there in South Africa. And apparently, I need to dig into Africa in general. So I was doing just a little bit of research there. So Nigeria apparently has a population of over 200 million.
Oh, 200, okay.
Yeah, 200 million with about a 50-50 split with males and females. So still a really large, percentage of cannabis consumers. They actually they're the 7th largest country as far as population in the world, which I am astounded by. Really cool stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. United States is 3rd, Indonesia, Brazil, Pakistan, and then Nigeria. Really, really amazed by that. And the facts that are thrown out with the, the amount of cannabis they consume. Really want to get somebody on the phone from Nigeria and talk about this. Really cool. So, Kyle, can you bring us into your grow room? Bring the audience in there and tell us, the type of lighting that you're using, soil, walk us through the grow setup, the size, anything that you're willing to share with us.
Perfect. So right now I have, I'm sorry, I really don't know the conversions into feet, but a 2.4 meter by 1.2 meter tent. I have 2 of those.
I think that's a 4x8 tent.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds right. 4x8 tent.
4x8. Yeah. Yep. So I have 2 of those. I have in the one, I have 2 LED fixtures that are locally made from a company called Indoor Sun. They're 460 watts with far red, full spectrum. I'm really, really impressed with these lights. They come with a 5-year warranty. They have fans, cooling fans for the actual diodes of the LEDs, which at first, I got these lights that I had to, add ducting into, and they were LED, and I was, confused me a little bit because I hadn't seen another product like that. With LEDs, HPS and stuff, I understand. And so, I used those. I had my first harvest out of that, and it was my first indoor run, and I got a gram per watt, so I was very, very pleased with that. And in my second tent, I have 2 Growtron Advanced fixtures, and I was really impressed with these just by the features that they had. It came with 4 different switches. So one of the switches was for your cool and your warm whites. Another one was for your far reds. Another one was for your infrared, and then another one for your UVs. So I had 2 of those, and I I was very impressed with them up until they burnt out. And at first, one of the fixtures went out, and it was the driver. At first, I thought it was just the bars, but it was the whole driver. I got that replaced. They sent me one the next day, and that next day, the second unit bombed out. And when I let them know, it took 5 days, to get a new unit. But I was very impressed again with Indoor Sun, not, their lights, but they offered to give me a fixture to put into my tent while that one that wasn't even theirs was bust.
Oh, wow.
So huge shout out to them because, customer service to the max.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Like I said, locally made. I can actually go to the factory. It's about 10 minutes from my house. And they've said to me that they have extra units for these exact situations. If someone has a light, one of their customers has a light that goes out, they will send a replacement while they fix, their light. So you don't sit without a fixture at all because, that happened to me in my second tent. So I actually ended up not even harvesting. I just kind of just put those outside and let them do what they wanted because everything went into re-veg. I didn't have a light for 5 days. And my plants just really started struggling. And I was like, well, I can keep spending the money on the electricity or, just start new. And then soil-wise, I started off with a product that was made here with cocoa, sphagnum peat moss, all organic living soil. The only thing is bat guano is apparently legal to get in South Africa. So that's something that we can't get our hands on. But this company, Organics Matter, makes the soil. And I was very impressed with it. It comes with humic, fulvic acid, calcite, lime, all your micro nutrients that you would need. And then they give you a little sachet of mycorrhizal fungi. I used that, and then I've also now started trying to build my own soils. I've got access to like a little farm where they've got some zebra, horses, donkeys, alpaca, a few different kind of buck, rabbits. Gonna collect all of that. And then my homie, the Duckinist on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I think you spoke to him a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Him and I are going to be making a soil and a compost heap, and just putting a whole bunch of stuff and starting to build our own stuff using cocoa as the base. And then I've got 2 exhaust fans for each tent, and I was actually given Inkbird temperature controller and a humidity controller from one of my friends that I'll start incorporating on one of the tents to see how that goes. Yeah.
Cool. We're going to get into the story and how to kind of overcome the whole lighting fixture and, some precautions to take a little bit later because I think that's really important there.
Cool.
Thank you very much for bringing us into your grow room. Sounds like you have a really good setup and things dialed in pretty well down there, huh?
Yeah, definitely getting it in. Unfortunately, I'm sure, you know about our load shedding, and you said we'd get into that. So, electricity is sometimes an issue in this country. And so that's basically the main thing that us indoor growers have to deal with.
Well, why don't we get into that right now, Kyle? When I spoke with the Docinist a bit, we did go over it, but I'd like to get your perspective about, we talked before I hit the record button. Sometimes in your area, the power company can just, shut off power. Tell us how that transpires and how as a grower, when you rely on, 12 hours of daylight consistently for your plants to grow, how you deal with the intermittent power and what you do to kind of overcome and course correct with your plants, if you will.
Of course, yeah. We have an app that basically it's got different stages, stage 1 to 8. One usually being about an hour or two that in the day, a 24-hour period that they'll turn the power off, and then up to stage 8 where you only get about 2 hours of power from the government today. And
But
it's
is it random times? Is it, like, hey, we're gonna shut off the power at 2 p.m. today to 6 p.m., or is it,
yeah,
hey,
so
we're
it'll
shutting off
be
power right now?
well, yeah. So you'll get an alert basically saying, okay, well, in the next 10 minutes, we've got stage 2 load shedding that's going to be implemented. So then you have to go and check the app and see what area you in to see what your schedule is, because then you're like, okay, stage 2 I've got now from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, or 4 o'clock till 8:30, because usually stage 2 is about 4.5 hours.
Okay.
So it actually happened to us today. This morning we had power off from 8 o'clock, and it was stage 2 load shedding from 8 o'clock until 2:30. Until 12:30, and then at about 2 o'clock, we got an alert saying, "Oh, listen, our power stations are battling, so it's now being pushed to stage 4." Luckily, my specific area isn't being affected tonight again, but now I've got load shedding or no power from midnight tonight until 4 in the morning, and then from 4 in the afternoon until 8:30 tomorrow afternoon. And yeah, so as a grower, you have to kind of know the schedule, but it's also difficult because you don't know, are you going to get 4 hours of no power, or are you going to get 8 hours of no power? So I think for most growers in South Africa, we rely heavily on really good, decent LED torches and little lamps and whatnot that run off battery. Unfortunately, it's not full spectrum, so the plant's not getting everything it needs, but at least it's enough just to keep that photo period going for it not, to really be affected too much. But yeah, it's a huge problem, because obviously when the power goes off, it's not just the light, it's your intake, your outlet, it's all your oscillating fans.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really creates huge issues, and then you have to, as a grower now, go and make sure that, okay, if my plants are sleeping, let me at least go and make sure that the torches are off. So now you need to go and open the tent and let the light in when it shouldn't go on, and yeah.
Wow. Just wow. I know there are people that are at home listening to this and baffled by what they would do. And, we're told so much. You got to keep your plants on the 12-12 schedule, the 12-12 schedule, and, give them light and get them to grow. And I know there's people out there that are listening to that and just wondering how you're dealing with that. And, the quality of the cannabis is obviously affected. I mean, I know that you're making the best out of a really crappy situation there, but I I just have so many thoughts running through my head. I want to get them organized here. So I had 5 days that I went without power in my grow. It was a commercial grow. I had a 20 light grow in Maine, and we had an ice storm and we lost power for 5 days. And I had the ability to get a generator and run lights and a reduced power setting. But it was the longest 5 days of my life because, I was swapping over extension cords and filling generators and, moving lights back and forth into different rooms and moving things around. And that's a different scenario than what you guys experience. I guess the most frustrating part for me would be not knowing, if your light schedule, like tomorrow, you said that you're going to have power from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. ish. Is that correct? That's when you'll have power?
Yeah.
But that's not when you have power every day, right?
No, because the schedule changes every day. So, the following day, it may be that, well, you don't have power from 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. in the morning till 10 a.m.
Right.
and then again from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m.
Right.
Like it changes every day. Like I said, there is a schedule that you can go and check. And as a grower, like you kind of have to rely on that and be like, hey, I need to be prepared for anything because, like today you're in stage 2 and then suddenly you get shot up to stage 4. So it's from 4 hours of no power to 8 hours of no power. So,
Wow.
you got to be prepared for that.
So I need to talk about, the best practices here for people that might experience this or go through intermittent power, and curious about that. So you said that you have some lighting that, is run off batteries, but for people that are thinking about doing that, there is a minimum par value for those lights to be at for your plants to register.
Yeah,
so keep that in mind.
Exactly, yeah.
They need to be strong enough for your plants to sense that the light is there for that flowering period to continue. If you don't have that and you want to keep on the same schedule, say your light schedule is midnight to noon every day, and then you lose power halfway through that, let the power just be out. Would you think that's the best advice, Kyle? Is like, if your lights are on for 6 hours and then you lose power and it comes on 4 hours later, don't turn your lights back on. Just let your plants rest, right?
Oh, yes, 100%. Right. Yes, no, definitely don't try and change because then it's, it's changing their whole schedule completely.
Right.
Like don't try and supplement the light that you may have lost. Don't try and now go and add that on afterwards when the plant should be sleeping and be like, oh, well, lost 4 hours. Then you go and add another 4 hours after that. Rather just let it have it lose those 4 hours of actual light and had, a longer time of them being at rest.
Oh, man, I can't wait to ask this question on social media. Have you seen any of the studies out there that show that some people are experimenting with turning lights on for 5.5 hours, turning the lights off for an hour, and then turning the lights back on for 5.5 hours?
No, I have not.
And then 12 hours of darkness? Have you heard of any of that?
No, I actually haven't. But
okay.
I'd be interested to see the results on that.
So, I've talked to just a couple of people that are doing this, and they say that because your plant is consuming light, it's absorbing its food during the daylight hours, and then at nighttime is when the plant is actually processing food and using it and growing.
Yeah.
So if the plant doesn't have time to rest, it's not ever actually going through the full photosynthesis process.
Oh no, 100%. Like growing or keeping lights on for 24 hours.
Right.
I'm super against that.
Yeah, and I know I used to veg in 24-hour light, and when I switched to 18.6, I saw a huge difference in my plants, just allowing them that time.
100%. Same thing with me. As soon as I that's why I love going to my tent when after the day or after they've been sleeping, because I see the most growth.
Right.
And after they've been sleeping.
Yeah, and at some points in time, like during those first couple of weeks of flower, you can almost see the plant growing, during the dark hours. You can almost hear the plant like expanding and like, flexing. But what I was saying with the 5.5 hours an hour is that the plant essentially gets 2 days of light in one light schedule. So that hour in between 5.5 hours on and on is long enough for the plant to rest and reset and then be ready for another day. And then you give it a full 12 hours of rest for it to actually be growing.
Wow, okay. I'm actually very interested in that. I think I might just try that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear what people think about this. I'm going to post the question up on social media and see if we can't get somebody to talk about it, maybe on Growcast that's actually done it. But, there is that theory. Back to the whole resting, if your power goes out in your room, it's okay. If your power's out for a day or two, it's okay. If you can't keep it on the light schedule, just get it, back on the light schedule as soon as your power gets back on. Start with a 12 right then.
Yeah.
That first day, maybe I suggest some reduced lighting just so you're not shocking that plant, but then get it right back into that 12-12 schedule and just start whenever the power comes back on, start that 12-12 schedule then.
Yeah, definitely start blowing that out. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like you to talk about what you had to do with your plants to kind of help them to rebound after that stretch of time where they didn't have power.
So when the light went out for 5 days, I had 2 plants that, like, it still baffles me. Like I made posts about it and I asked people, like, please, like, give me some information on this, because after the 5 days, there were 2 of the plants, like, on the front left-hand side. So I had 12 plants in total in that tent, 6 under the one light and 6 under the other. And the left-hand side light went out, and 2 on the front left, for some reason, they just, like, started dying out. And then I thought, obviously, it's just because they didn't have light for 5 days. And then someone else said, no, it's the thrips. But none of the other plants were affected in the exact same tent. So I was like, I didn't understand, like, and still to this day, I didn't understand it. So I just, basically cut off all the dead stuff that was on there, and just try to promote new growth. Gave it a little bit of Kelpac, seaweed extract, and my bounce back after about 2 weeks. And it was really weird. They were so confused that they started re-vegging, and I just, eventually I was like, okay, well, I'll just give them 11 hours of light and 13 hours of darkness, and just let them do their thing. And they started bouncing back, and then unfortunately, because of our electricity problems here, I was like, I'm not gonna waste my time on plants that are already looking laughy and hairy, and there's no main colas, everything's just so I was like, let me just put them outside, and luckily it is our flowering time now, so put them outside, let them just finish and do their thing under the natural light, and just get a new one started. So that's kind of what I did. And then when I was in flower and I did have the power go off, did try and use just normal LED torches and whatnot that had a lot of lumens, and just put a whole bunch of them to try and just give them the 12-hour light period.
I think that's a good call. There's definitely some TLC that needs to be done, and I would suggest, just to make sure that, if you continue to move forward with these plants, that you're just looking out for hermaphrodite traits. Anytime that you're stressing out a plant with lighting or heat in that first week or so, make sure that if your plants do start to show little nanners, as they call, because they're little pollen sacs that look like bananas, that you get those plants out of that room so they're not spraying pollen and ruining the rest of the garden. So
yeah, and that comes down to just going to a garden every day and just having good maintenance, making sure you're checking your plants. And I also wanted to mention, I know that you said earlier that when you had 5 days, you had a generator. And luckily, if you're able to, and you live in a house in South Africa, you can. But a lot of the home growers that I know actually, live in apartments and whatnot. So unfortunately, you can't run a generator. It's unfair on the neighbors and stuff. And it's actually in the rules that you can't run a generator. So you just have to, you have to just make do.
Yeah, the only other thing that I was thinking about it as a good fail-safe for this type of scenario would be the battery backups for computers.
Yeah,
they have those in offices that the power dies, your computer doesn't immediately die, so you can save things and actually continue to work off of it for 20, 30 minutes. I mean, they have bigger ones for, servers and stuff. And I don't know how much those are, but that would be a decent fail safe. You could plug at least your light and, a fan into the battery backup.
Yeah, so at least one fan just to keep that air moving. You don't want that stale air.
Yeah. I was just thinking, and again, I don't know how much those cost, but that, might be something to look into if with intermittent power issues there.
100%, But luckily, like in South Africa, we have a saying, a boer maak 'n plan, and translated it means a farmer makes a plan. Like it's just how we brought up here. We just make do. If something's broken, let's fix it.
Yeah, I think that's in cannabis gardening, something is always going to break on you. And it's about having just a little bit of ingenuity and overcoming those problems and being able to quickly fix it so it doesn't affect your grow. So
yeah, and I mean, sometimes you don't have the budget to just go and buy something new, so you find something around that you can use instead.
And just make sure it's clean before you get into that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, rub it down with some alcohol.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and thank the amazing Dr. Zymes. Find them at drzymes.com. You can save yourself 10% by using the code GROWCAST10 at checkout on their two products, the multi-purpose cleaner and the eliminator. The eliminator is a regularly talked about product here on the show and on GrowCast. It's really taken the IPM solution world by storm, and we're so proud to be one of their best partners. They're one of our best partners. Their all-natural IPM solution can be used on seedlings, in veg, in flower, right up through harvest, and does not leave a slick oil, and it takes care of those soft-bodied insects, molds, mildews, so on and so forth. So Dr. Zymes, ZYMES.com. Save yourself 10% by using the code GROWCAST10 and show them some love. We have a giveaway coming up with them very soon, so stay tuned. And let's get back to the show with Kyle. So we are just about done here. We're going to toss one more question at Kyle from South Africa. Kyle, what would you prefer to talk about? Do you want to talk about lighting and par values, since we've been kind of on the lighting and electricity train, or do you want to get into your exact training techniques for bigger yields?
Well, you see, the thing is, let's get into the lighting, because I feel like, training techniques, a lot of people know, like I use and I'll mention what I do. And I'm sure I've heard a lot of people talk about it. So, I use LST and topping. That's my main things. And I use a scrog net. I had a 3-layer scrog that, I just put my plants under the netting, train them as wide as they could, had a nice sea of green. Yeah.
Cool.
So let's get into lighting, I think.
Yeah, please do. Go for it.
Yeah, so, I mean, do you want me to talk about the lights that I have right now?
Well, you wanted to talk about, lighting and par values specifically is what you put down on the form, but there were also other things that you put on that go deep. But, let's talk about par values when it comes to LEDs and, the lights that you've gone through, but also, like, I guess what new home growers should be looking for when they're buying a light.
Yeah, so, definitely, full spectrum. Unfortunately, those cheap LEDs that you can find, and in America, you guys have Home Depot, and I can't remember the other.
Lowe's is the other big one.
Yeah, Lowe's there, yeah. So, yeah, you don't want to just get, like a normal floodlight or anything. Definitely a proper full spectrum LED. From what I've seen, during veg, you want your par readings to be at least about 500 lumens, by the canopy. And then during flower, anywhere up to about 900 from my understanding.
Okay. Yeah, those numbers sound great. Any tips on, I mean, I know that you might have different, shopping experiences, but, any advice for kind of wading through the noise, I guess, when it comes to looking for lights? I mean, every lighting manufacturer is going to tell you this is the best. It's, works great from veg to flower. I think the lighting companies that, give it to you straight and give you the numbers for you to be able to prepare and compare, are the ones that I would go after.
Oh, no, 100%. So, yeah, that's why, my first lights that I went to was the Indoor Suns, the locally made ones here. They gave me an actual footprint of the par readings.
Right.
The lights at different heights. And, for me, I was like, okay, well, this is real data that I can look at. This is, I can know, okay, well, this is how high I should have my light during veg, and this is how high I should have it during flower, and how close I can have it before I'm going to have any burn. Because, the nice thing about LEDs is they are, a lot cooler, I guess, than your HPSs. So you can run them a lot closer to your plants without burning them to reach those optimal par readings that you want your plant to get to. And obviously, if you have CO2, you can just increase that, which with the LEDs that I've got, they said to me that, you can definitely pump the CO2 and just increase your par readings.
Cool. Yeah. Two things that I would suggest for serious growers, and this is by no means necessary for, a beginner home grower, or even not novice, but a hobbyist was the word I was looking for, hobbyist home grower. But somebody who, wants to experiment and move things around and play with things, I would go to Amazon and find yourself a fairly cheap par meter. The one that I used to have is under $50. And for me, when I had multiple lights in a room, it was critical for me to know where the best lighting quality was. Or I guess it was more important to know where the poorest lighting quality was. And that was kind of the gaps that I could leave if I needed to leave any gaps in my canopy. I didn't want to, put a plant underneath a really bad par area if I had good areas that, were giving better light.
Yeah, 100%.
It's also helpful for that distance away from the light. As your light gets older or degrades a little bit, maybe you need to move the plant a little bit closer before you change the bulb. And that's not that big of a deal if the heat isn't an issue.
So I don't know how many other companies do it, but this company that Indoor Sun, if you can give them the dimensions of your grow area and the lights that you want to use, and they'll actually do a simulation and send it to you and show you exactly, where your lowest par readings are going to be, the best,
wow,
lighting setup, I guess, to get the best and optimal, lighting spread out of your area.
It's a great idea. Great idea. The other thing I was going to suggest for serious growers is eventually getting yourself a CO2 ppm monitor as well. That will interact with the par levels and getting the most out of your lights and getting the most out of your plants as well. I think people would be surprised. One of our previous guests, Matt from Michigan, Doctilla's Garden, just tagged me on an Instagram post where he is supplementing his CO2 with some bags for the first time ever. And he read inside his tent, the CO2 ppms were about 200 ppms.
Wow.
That is about half of the atmospheric level. And the reason for that is that the plants are absorbing CO2 and turning it into oxygen. So there's going to be less CO2 in your tent, because if the atmosphere was the same, inside that, the plants are using it up and putting more oxygen into the tent than CO2 was there. So I think you'd be surprised at how low your CO2 level is and how much happier your plants are with just a little boost in the CO2 levels. So,
oh yeah,
Cal, did you have any thoughts on that as we look to wrap things up? I'll kick it over to you to let people know where they can find you. Any parting thoughts or any thoughts that you had on what I just had to say?
Yeah, so I actually have a guy that I helped out, and he uses it's basically pool acid and something else that he mixes, and he just does it. It's like an 8-second reaction and just boosts his CO2 levels. And I went and helped him defoliate 2 weeks later. I went to his plants and I couldn't believe the size of his leaves. All his leaves were like, so much bigger than my hands. And, just 2 weeks before that, they were just normal leaves. So the CO2, I definitely believe in that. I saw huge changes in plants with CO2. And people can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is ganjaplanter_420. Yeah.
Cool. Any last bits of advice that you'd like to give to our audience before we say farewell?
My suggestion to everyone is always just keep it organic. always start with a good base. Your soil is the most important part. Without a good soil, you can't expect your plants to thrive. Give your plants enough root space, so make sure your pots are big enough. Yeah, and definitely transplanting is a big thing. Something that I've taken to quite a lot recently is, letting your plant grow to its pot size and then transplanting, as to not allow pockets of air in the roots. So that's something that I've also taken away and seen really good results with. So that's a tip that I've learned. And yeah, use LST topping, train your plant, play around with the plant, stay very resilient. Have fun. Like, it's growing. It's your own stuff at the end of the day.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to leave it off. Audience, just want to say thanks so much for listening and continuing to support the show. Once again, we're just going to ask for those ratings, reviews, subscribe, and share to anybody that you think might benefit from this type of knowledge, this type of experience, and hearing from growers all over the world like Kyle from South Africa. Thanks again, Kyle, for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate your time, and it was very nice chatting to you.
Likewise. And audience, happy growing. Until next time.